Good evening! So, I'm really excited for this because I kind of had a realization today, and when I had it, I also realized that I hadn't seen any other videos like this. I even tried looking it up, and I couldn't find anything that helped with this particular thing. So I'm really excited to share my kind of like accidental discovery through my beta reading process. Somebody else has probably discovered it too, I just haven't been able to find anything on it. But I tend to have a problem with over-explaining to my readers in my writing. And I think a lot of people have that problem too, because I definitely see it mentioned in a lot of videos where they talk about don't do this, don't do that, and they'll say don't over-explain because it comes off as you're treating your reader like they're stupid and they can't figure it out for themselves. Now, I have a problem with over-explaining, and I think this has probably come from my years working in customer service, where you have to over-explain because people are kind of stupid. But but anyway, that ends up getting into my writing, and it's a problem. And through my beta reading process, I have had one beta in particular that has pointed this out to me quite a bit. And through going through their comments, I realized that almost every time, right before I am over-explaining something, there are certain words that kind of indicate that I'm about to over-explain something. Now, like I mentioned, I've seen plenty of videos saying don't over-explain to your readers. I haven't seen any explaining tips on how you can tell when you're over-explaining, because obviously I don't know that I'm over-explaining until somebody tells me. But now I have some clues as to the fact that I might be over-explaining that part, and I'm going to share those with you. So I noticed a pattern in my writing with my beta readers telling me that things were being over-explained, and there are a few key phrases, well, there's actually several key phrases that I tend to use a lot, that maybe you could Control F on your document and then check and see if maybe you are in fact over-explaining on those parts, if that's something that can be cut and isn't actually adding anything to your reader's understanding. One of the big ones that I noticed is because. If you use the word because, you're about to explain something, so by definition that explaining of something may not necessarily need to be there. Obviously read through it, figure out if you do in fact need it. That's going to be true for all of these. One of the big ones that I do that almost always precedes unnecessary explaining is in order to. I pretty much always tend to do that where I'll be saying, I'm just trying to come up with an example on the fly. Like, let's say it's a little girl and we just had a scene where her mom is saying, you're gonna be grounded if you don't clean up your room. So then the next sentence would be, she stomped to her room and started throwing all her toys in her toy chest in order to avoid punishment. So we already know that it's in order to avoid punishment. We saw the scene where her mom threatened to punish her if she didn't clean her room. That's unnecessary explaining. I could get rid of that. There are other situations where you may need that portion, but it may not be necessary depending on the situation. And now a lot of these are going to be followed by that. So I have a bad issue with using the word that a lot in my writing. And I think some of that comes down to that being attached to these other words. So I'm just going to kind of list off the other ones in kind of rapid fire mode here so that this isn't a super long video. Apparently all of these start with I too. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them do. So indicating that, that one I tend to do a lot. It'll be like her brows pinched together, indicating that she was upset at the situation. That's not something I actually wrote, but like you can see how that's over explaining. Like you could tell like she's not happy if she's doing this, you know? Implying that, same thing. Same exact situation. Showing that, demonstrating that, that's another one I tend to use too much. What's the other one? Oh, I already did indicating. I've got indicating written down twice. Meaning that, that's another one. And then two other kind of odds and ends ones, I'm going to try to think of examples on the fly for these, is tone of or expression of. And I'm going to try to think of an example here on the fly. Let me think of one and I'll be right back with you actually. Okay, so I thought of one for expression of. So for example, if you said, she glowered in an expression of distaste. Depending on the situation and the context that that's being said in, you could probably just say she glowered, and people can probably understand that it's in distaste or disgust or whatever it is that you said. You don't need to explain it to them that she's feeling that particular emotion. You've got her facial expression and you've got context clues. Same thing for tone of voice. If you say tone of and then something to explain, you've probably already said it in whatever dialogue that you had there, that you're saying she said or he said in the tone of whatever. People can probably pick up from context clues and what it is that they said, what tone of voice they were using, most of the time. Now, sometimes you might need those ones. They might be necessary, so kind of use discretion on that. But I found that probably 9 out of 10 times that I was using these in my writing, my betas were saying, this is over explaining, we're good. And then I read over it and I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, it is. Now, sometimes I disagreed with them and that's fine, but that was probably maybe 1 out of 10 times that I was like, I don't care, I'm keeping that in there, I like it. But most of the time I was like, yep, I can't believe I put that in there. That was bad. So anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. So just once more, kind of rapid fire, in case you want to control F these things in your own writing and see if maybe you are doing some over explaining with using these words that kind of indicate that you're about to do that. Because in order to, indicating that, implying that, showing that, demonstrating that, meaning that, tone of, and expression of. Now, if you have any other of these to add to the list that you have noticed in your own writing tend to proceed over explaining, please share them in the comments below. That would be extremely helpful to all of us who have this problem of over explaining in our writing. It will help with your word to punch ratio. It will help clean up your writing. It'll make it less clunky, and also it'll make your readers not mad at you that they think that you're implying that they're stupid and can't figure it out from context clues. So please share any tips that you have on this subject below in the comments. We would love the help with it, and you guys have a great night. Alrighty, bye-bye.